All right. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Sunday. Today is, what is it, March 19th? This is my birthday month, y'all. Hey. Um, I was, some of you saw my video that I did for March 5th. It was my birthday. I took some time off to pamper myself. I went down to Florida to spend some time with a longtime friend of mine. We've been friends, 34 years. And so had a really good time. And so now I'm back. And for those of you who have been consistently joining, you may also realize I got my voice back. Can I just tell y'all that thing was driving me crazy? But after seeing a video of the little culprit thing, I had no choice but to go ahead and have the surgery, and I'm so grateful that I did because, yeah, I truly did not realize how much it actually affected me. Uh, yeah. So with that being said, thank you. Okay. Also, now our other co-host, he is in the middle of helping his wife's grandmother move, and he said that time got away from him, and so unfortunately, he will not be in attendance tonight. So, but the show must go on, right? Right. Hey, Dantia, welcome, welcome, welcome. So again, it appears that there is an issue on Facebook. So I think while my guests will be speaking, I'm going to see if I can tackle the issue. I think the problem. So look, y'all don't judge me. The problem came in is that I was looking at the word imposter and I was like, doggone it, you don't spell that doggone word wrong. And so I went to go and try and fix it, uh, and correct the spelling, and that just threw everything out of whack on Facebook. Like, yeah, Facebook is like extra sensitive. So I don't know I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, so I will attempt to fix that. I don't know how I can actually go live. Like I can it's supposed to be live, but for whatever reason it's telling me that it's not, that the event was deleted, but I know that it wasn't deleted because I invited people from it. So yeah, go figure. But hopefully we'll have a lot of people join via YouTube. I see that that's how Dantia joined. She joined via YouTube. So yeah, let's pray and cross our fingers and hope that people will just shift to the other platform. Anyway, today's discussion is on imposter syndrome, and its effects on this next generation. So I do want to take this conversation from two different perspectives. One being in the workplace, and then the other being in our schools, like how our children are being impacted. And so I asked two very good friends of mine to join us in this conversation live, and I am so grateful and appreciative of their joining us. We first have Lorene Walker. Lorene is well, I'll let her do her own bio, but she is all the way in Buffalo, New York. And honestly, I have been knowing Lorene now going on 3 years now. Yeah, I think it's 3 years. And look, God is intentional uh, about the relationships that He forges. Dantia says that's how my alerts pop up. Oh, I don't. What alerts? What are you talking about? um, and so anyway, so Lorene will address this discussion from the perspective of what it looks like in the workplace or corporate America. Then next we have Vanessa, who is here in Charlotte with me. But Vanessa is a school teacher, and oh, I don't want to call you a school teacher. You are an educator. I like that better. Yes, Vanessa is an educator, and so she is going to tackle the conversation from the perspective of how how imposter syndrome shows up in our school system. So, with that being said, I want to thank them both for joining. I would like you to go ahead and introduce yourselves, give a little quick bio while I see if I can fix the Facebook issue. So, Lorraine, you can go ahead and start.
Hi, I am Lorene Walker Ibeka. I am an assistant director of operations for a healthcare organization. I've been working in corporate healthcare for about 18 years. Um, and imposter syndrome plays a big role, sometimes impacting women, especially sometimes Black women in this space. I'm also a mom of one. I've been married for almost 8 years now, and I met Letitia via way of her daughter. We went to grammar school together. Um, I've known her daughter a very long time. She's a good friend of mine, and like she said, I live in Buffalo, New York. So I guess I can give you the imposter syndrome from
Mhm.
corporate and I guess the millennial perspective.
Yeah,
I am a millennial. I was born in 1983, and sometimes I could be wise beyond my years, but we'll see today, and we'll go from there.
excellent, excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. That have we done? We lost your mic again.
Here I am. I
No,
had to
thank
shut it down for a moment.
you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Griffith. Letitia and I met, we're church family, and
Mhm.
we often, of late, we come together in force during VBS over the summer.
Mhm.
I am an educator at a small private Christian school, and I am a mother of one, a grandmother of two, and in full transparency, the lesson that we are, the topic that we're discussing tonight, I occasionally fall victim.
You, say it again. You said the topic we're discussing tonight. You're what?
I have occasionally fallen
Mm.
victim to,
Mm.
but it's not a place that I stay in long.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I again thank you both. I'm excited to hear hear the perspectives that y'all bring to this conversation. Um, I'm believing that we're going that between the three of us, as well as our guests, they will be able to shed some light on experiences, things that maybe we didn't necessarily know that they were quote unquote um, uh, imposter syndrome. We might have called them something else, but I hope we can kind of like, because again, that's a brand new big word or title that they put on something that actually has been present, for many years. But I guess I don't know. I don't know what it is that we're like. It's almost like we're revamping things. When we call something one thing and then we revamp it. Oh, this sounds better. Let's call it this now. So, so for our guests and for everyone who is watching, um, the things that we talking about, you may know it as being something else. You're not necessarily wrong. We're just, these are just 21st century words. I'm going to say it like that. um, is there the situation didn't change. We just titled it something different. So two things we're going to do. I want to first put up the definition of what uh, imposter syndrome is. Now, depending on who you're speaking to, the definition changes. But for all intents and purposes, this is what the definition is, and it is because of this definition that I realized, wow, this is not just happening in the workplace. This is also happening in our school system. And the reason why I say that is because of a conversation I had with two of my grandchildren one time, and they were saying how, and in the classroom, when the teacher asks a question, they know the answer, but they said they don't raise their hand. And asked them, well, why would you not raise your hand? And they said because they don't want to be wrong. But I'm like, but you know the answer. And he was like, yeah, but I don't want the teacher to tell me that I'm wrong. And so I at the time didn't really, I encouraged them to still, raise their hand, and if they know it, trust that they know the answer, trust that they are right. And I said, and even if your answer is incorrect, better you raise your hand and give an incorrect answer so that you can get the right answer than you sit there and ponder and wonder, did I know it? Do I know it or don't I know it? And I feel like it would be a really, really sad state of affairs if a lot of our children actually think like them. So that's why I wanted to bring in the piece as with regards to our kids in school. Next, I want to show really quick a short, I think it's about 6 minute little video to give a better breakdown as to what imposter syndrome is. So bear with me while I present. All right, I'm just trying to get this video up. Give me 1 second. There we go. Is it share screen? Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see it, but I cannot hear it.
That you cannot hear it. Okay. Let's see. Hmm. So not sure why it's not allowing me. So it's not like Zoom. You know how Zoom you gotta share your sound. It's supposed to automatically just play sound and all. Let's see. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, looks like it's going to give me a hard time um, sharing that video. So, um, for in the interest of time, we're not going to stay stuck on there, and we just going to move forward with our discussion. Um, what I will do is on YouTube, I will go ahead and post the video on my YouTube channel, so people can go and look at it from there. So again, I do um, apologize for our technical difficulties and not being able to show it now. But so with that being said, I do have some questions. And we'll start with the first question. And though it will make reference to this next generation, I do want you both to answer it with regards to um, your part of the conversation. So, I mean, even though it does make reference to the next generation, could you still answer the question? As it plays out in the workplace, as it plays out with respect to millennials, and then Vanessa, then you can chime in and give your perspective as how this plays out with our children. So, Lorraine, do we think this next generation has a fear of feeling incompetent despite demonstrating competency? In other words, feeling that they are not good enough.
I really think that it depends on the person and if they have like sensibilities as far as like resiliency built in them, confidence built in them, um, affirming that they can do it based on like imposter syndrome, and the history behind it was based on like a research study of high functioning and high performant women in corporate, corporate offices, who felt like they couldn't get promoted even though that they had all the skills and the abilities as their male counterparts. They were waiting for conditions to be perfect for them to apply for that next level or going for that next opportunity. They wanted to make sure that they had at least 85% of the job qualifications in order to apply for the position versus like a man who like nearly had like 24%. But it was all about the confidence that that man brought to the table, even though he might not have displayed any of the skills that the woman had. He did it because he believed that he could. And meanwhile, the woman was waiting for the conditions. So I think that now a lot of people missed opportunities is because they always try to wait for the perfect timing, the perfect conditions in order for them to make moves and to make changes. So if kids or people don't know how to navigate or take action, they get stuck on trying to be perfect before they can do something. So I think it comes down to mindset, having, I guess, somebody pouring into you or you pouring into yourself those abilities to
Mhm.
be confident or look at the situation
Mhm.
as, I have X, Y, and Z, and I can do this if I believe I can do it. Because I used to be like a person too who had imposter syndrome, even though it was coming out of a place, and at the time I didn't realize what it was, but it was coming out of a place, not it was coming out of a place waiting for the perfect conditions in order to make a move. Because I'm like, you
Mhm.
have like all your degrees, all your experience behind you, and you trying to make sure that you check all the X, Y, and Z like in a job description. However, now, after I got, career coaching, I had people praying for me and, speaking into me about being able to do things. It was that building up of that confidence. You had all this in you all this time. Now it's time for you to
Mhm.
show that you can do it. So I think it's just needing to be like encouraged and built up
Mhm.
and had that affordability, in your life. So yes, I do believe that this generation, it might have to be a lot of mindset work
Mhm.
that goes behind them having the ability to believe that they can achieve and do something.
Mhm. Real quick before Vanessa chimes in, do either one of you think that so um there used to be a time, maybe some people still do um say this, but I remember, like coming up, starting my career. For the most part, I've always been in corporate America. But I've always, heard people say, in order to get the promotion, in order to earn the extra money, you gotta be the first one in the office, the last one to leave. You have to work 10 times harder than either one, your male counterpart, or two, your female counterpart. So with a with that ideology being constantly fed to a person, do you think that contributes to them experiencing imposter syndrome? And either one of you can answer that.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Um
Yeah.
okay, I apologize. Can you just repeat that question?
Oh, so I was saying that how uh but and like I said, maybe they still say it. I don't know. I personally don't believe in that ideology, but there used to be a time when they would say in order for us to get ahead, we gotta work harder, 10 times harder than either our male or our white counterpart. You got to be the first one in the office, the last one out of the office. You're always, you got to do more
Mm.
in order for you to get even a smidgen of what either that male counterpart or white male counterpart receive. And so I was asking, do either one of you think that that contributes to the ideology of imposter syndrome? And I think Kedra Services is like they, I think she's responding yes. She thinks that that is a contributing factor.
Mhm.
But what do you ladies think?
Okay. Now that I've heard it in its entirety again, um, it actually falls into one of the segments.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when we talk off camera, that there are, 5 different types, and that one falls into the superhero,
Mm-hmm.
where that person feels as though they have to do twice as much,
Mm-hmm.
twice as hard, and then still, they push themselves to work harder, and sometimes may still feel as though they don't measure up.
Mm-hmm.
And like our other guest talked about earlier, it's amazing the percentage of women
Mm-hmm.
that it affects
Yeah.
as opposed to men. But that is definitely it contributes to it. They're
Mm-hmm.
just types, and that one falls into the superhuman or the superhero segment of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Lorraine, did you hear that? Did you hear the question?
Yeah, so I have a different way of thinking about it. Um, yes, it do quite significantly impact women, but it's because of people thinking of that mentality that you have to work twice as hard and you have to do it twice as good because you right now you're a minority, you're a black female. But shifting your mindset
Mm-hmm.
and shifting your mindset and having like that confidence, you shift your thinking into what this thing, comparing yourself to like the mediocre white man
Mm-hmm.
coming from like the imposter syndrome. Now is a lot of like women who do like the career coaching, and they talk to us about you don't have to work twice as hard because you burn yourself out and you start suffering those physiological effects of doing stuff twice as hard just to
Mm-hmm.
keep up. And in actuality, all you have to do is do the same thing that the mediocre white men do and deliver the same results, but you just
Mm-hmm.
make sure yours is better. You don't have to work twice as hard. And I know, like in the past, we had a conversation about being enough and
Mm-hmm.
not passing on to the next generation that mentality working twice
Yeah.
as hard because it comes from like the slavery mentality.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
don't have to work twice as hard. You just have to be good enough. You just have to be enough. And
Mm-hmm.
if people start talking to their kids with that mindset, a lot of kids won't feel those pressures needing to stress themselves out or be good as, the Asian kid or the Chinese kid, to try to keep up and compete, with them as far as like the educational background. And then you don't have to take that same mindset into corporate America, because you see oftentimes like the standard was always based on the white male,
Mm-hmm.
that the standard was always based on the white male. And so now like we have to get beyond, like a lot of white men may not have been up to par like we once thought. So it's just like having those transparent conversations and looking at it and making sure that you tell yourself you are enough and that you don't have to work twice as hard. You have to look at being confident and believing in yourself, and you have to work smarter, not harder. And that's another thing that we have to shift it.
Mm-hmm.
Start telling the kids work smarter, not harder. And that's coming down now. Like you see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that with a lot of these kids in their 20s retiring because they built up these multi-million dollar
Mm-hmm.
influencing companies and these entrepreneur entrepreneurial companies because they couldn't picture themselves spending like 35, 45 years on a job and not making a significant increase and looking at trying to retire like when you turn 65 and then enjoying life. So they
Mm-hmm.
flipped the mindset of that imposter syndrome, and now like these kids is retired at 25 and retired
Mm-hmm.
at 30 because they decided to work smarter and not harder. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like now, like you have to do a drastic shift in your mindset and don't recreate the wheel
Right.
when you have those conversations with kids and adult and females. Now you start looking at different strategies to get the same result. So if you want that type of lifestyle, you start doing that same thing that you see those people doing, and you follow those same exact steps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. I absolutely agree. I think that it is definitely a there's a need for us to be instilling confidence in all of us. Whether it be our children or just other adults. You said you have to know that you are enough, and you cannot fall into um the you can't fall into the mindset, right, that I always have to prove myself, because that's exhausting.
Mhm.
That's exhausting. That wears you out. um it promotes a feeling of defeat, and you get to this place where you like, what is it for? Vanessa, back to the question on screen. Do you think this next generation has a fear of feeling incompetent despite demonstrating competencies? In other words, feeling that they are not good enough, and specifically like in the classroom, because I said I witnessed something like this with my grandkids. Like they knew the answer, but they were like, they wasn't going to raise their hand because there was this possibility that I might be wrong. So no, I'm not gonna do that.
Hmm. Well, I do notice that there's a difference, and it goes in ages. Like you look at a family, it's usually more prevalent in families that place an unusually high value on achievement.
Mm,
So you see it there. But then when they're younger and impressionable, they can go one way or the other. And like I said, I'm at a small private Christian school.
mm-hmm,
So our classes are small.
mm-hmm,
We can get to these kids one on one or in small group settings.
mm-hmm,
We start each day out with affirmations.
mm-hmm,
So these are things that work for them. But then they get to another age, or maybe they're not in that school
mm-hmm,
and they're influenced in other ways, like the ways you just spoke of. I don't want to raise my hand. I might be wrong,
mm-hmm,
you know? Um, I've seen total uh, breakdowns. Matter of fact, one just happened recently, and it
mm-hmm,
was just over not being able to pronounce a word that kept reoccurring
mm-hmm,
in the article that we were reading. And something we may think it's simple,
mm-hmm,
but for that child that has such high expectations of themselves or themselves, it was cause for a breakdown, literally.
mm-hmm,
And so that had to be addressed. And like I said, these are things that mess with your mind, but they can be overcome.
mm-hmm,
And the good thing about, like I said, at this school, the scholars literally saw this before I did,
Mhm.
and then brought it to my attention.
Mhm.
And together, that support system, instead of them laughing at her, they were like, you can do this. Let's break it up. Let's turtle
Mhm.
talk it. Let's listen to this. And I mean, they just felt, and it's like everything that we teach them, they
Mhm.
displayed. So
Mhm.
no matter how intelligent the child is,
Mhm.
or it just doesn't matter. It's a mind trick, and it creeps in,
Mhm.
and we can tell them, Philippians 4:13 all day long. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mhm.
But then that bug will get in your ear
Yeah.
and give you reason to say, maybe
Mhm.
not this time.
Mhm. 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 Listening to you, it made me, and listening to that scenario made me think of a kid in the classroom. So, you know, let's say, well, I guess I mean, let's just say, okay, this child he comes from a household, like you said, where the parent or parents puts a great emphasis on education, on reading and math and getting good grades, and they have a very structured regimen at home, as when the homework has to be done and study time and all that. And so you have this student who is on task, basically. And so in the classroom, every time the teacher asks a question, that student is always the one. So let's say it's the beginning of the school year. They're always the first one to raise their hand because they know all the answers. Let's say so that if school starts in mm, late August, by November of that same school year, is that student still more apt to keep raising their hand and answering the teacher's questions? Because there's something that goes on in that classroom at that point. They tend to seems like they tend to treat like it's like being punished for knowing the answer.
Mm. Well, and I know I've talked about segments. Okay, there are 5 different segments, and I guess we didn't
Mm-hmm.
cover that. It's like the perfectionist, the natural
Mm-hmm.
genius, the soloist, the expert, and the superheroes. So you
Mm-hmm.
were just describing the expert. This is
Mm-hmm.
the one who raises your hand all the time. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, a couple months into it, are they still raising their hand? Well, when they get into that expert level, they believe that they will never know enough. So then
Mm-hmm.
they fear being exposed
Mm-hmm.
for inexperience or being unknowledgeable at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a segment of this syndrome can hit them at any time. And like I told you, I feel as though I've been through several of them. And
Mm-hmm.
you would be shocked at the successful women who have fallen victim to this and had
Mm-hmm.
to overcome it. Maya Angelou, she penned
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal Woman,
Right.
but
She's
yet
she's
she,
on that video that I that I
yeah,
that don't want to play
oh,
now.
okay. Yes,
Yeah.
you have
Mm-hmm.
her, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, and these are people who have reached the echelon
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of what they do. They do it well. You've seen their accomplishments, but they still had doubts.
Mm-hmm.
At one point or another, they still had doubts. And then you have to look at a point where, okay, you can have all of this belief in yourself. And as Lorraine has stated, n- working harder and having to do more than that
Mm-hmm.
male counterpart, or how
Mm-hmm.
everything is judged on the white male then you have to actually bring racism into this. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can't be just, it's not just self doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you really and truly have to work twice
Mm-hmm.
as hard, longer hours to be recognized for what a mediocre man would do and get
Mm-hmm.
praised for, or get
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged for, or get paid for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even if you teach them how to combat it as children, when you come up against an obstacle such as, implicit bias or racism in the workplace, it's it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that you have to still learn on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know where their power come from within. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the teacher tell you, I tell them about the girl in my office. When I first started my new job, I'm a numbers person, and I started looking like, okay, something is going on here. What is up with this data that she keep bringing to me? And then,
Mm-hmm.
like, you start questioning it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, it's something like significantly wrong going on here. And it comes to find out, like, me telling people this data is not correct, is something going on, and like I'm bringing attention to it. So now it's like she's starting to unravel because somebody actually started paying attention. And
Mm-hmm.
she's not a black girl. And so it took somebody new, fresh set of eyes and to, bring attention to it. And then they finally came out to say, oh, it's been something going on with the data system for the past 2 years. So it took me coming and calling her out. When
Mm-hmm.
they tried to play those games, that's when you have to pull out your bag of tricks and you have to play those games too. It came to the point because I got quiet, I started praying for her, and then she would go to my boss and say, oh, well, is Lorene mad at me?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't say hi. I just let go and let God. I'm like, I don't have all that to do.
Mm-hmm.
You get
Mm-hmm.
quiet, you let your
Mm-hmm.
mind, their mind, start working on them. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to come to a place too that we can play the game just as well as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you learn those things, and then like this, hold spaces and conversations so you can teach other
Mm-hmm.
people how to play that game, but in the sense that we're not going to encourage our children or ourselves to work harder
Mm-hmm.
and stay longer, because again, those are the physiological effects of that racial discrimination and all that stuff causing
Mm-hmm.
stress in your life, causing you to
Mm-hmm.
have high blood pressure because you feel you need to stay after work to compete and get
Mm-hmm.
ahead. Mm-mm-mm-mm. No, you can't do that. You have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you have the same 8 hours in the day. You have to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
you maximize your 8 hours because they have those same 8 hours too. And you have to get to the point where
Mm-hmm.
you become efficient at how you prioritize yourself through your day and how you use your time. We as Black women can't afford to be staying late and giving ourselves high blood pressure and
Say
stressing out
so.
because of the fact that you want somebody to think you good. And
Mm.
I was like that at my old job because I was in an environment that did not foster my growth, didn't foster my development, but I had multiple degrees and couldn't get out the position that I was
Mm-hmm.
in because nobody saw the value in me. And then I started to lose sight of the value in myself. And it
Mm.
wasn't until I left that job
Mm.
of almost 17 years to come to the job where I am now. I have the ability to train the Black women, people of color who come behind me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm able to coach them. I'm able to pour into them. I'm able to help them be efficient in their 8 hours a day. I always had that ability in me. It's just like now I have a place in the space that I can bring it out. And you have to remember that when you are in an environment that you feel like is racism or negativity come into play, and you start honing in and start believing that, that's what drains your light, your vibrations, your energy, and you always wind up with
Mhm.
headaches, you stressed out, your hair is coming out, you always tired, and you don't feel the joy anymore in what
Mhm.
you once found rewarding. So
Right.
that's why you have to start building up your mental portability. Before I go into work, I do my affirmations. I pray. I sit in my car. I physically get up out my desk. I go outside and I take a walk, because I feel sometimes my office is not a big enough room for me to think in, and I got the whole outside. Have to
Mhm.
change your mindset, and that's what we
Mhm.
have to start teaching and telling each other. So
Mhm.
it's not, I'm not staying late because I don't see her staying late. I'm coming in here at 8 o'clock and I'm leaving at 4 o'clock. I don't bring no work home for me, except when I had to do
Mhm.
my conference presentation for the past month and a half. I had to do that because I had to present somewhere. But other than that, I'm not. I'm doing all I have to do in those 8 hours. That's what I get
Mhm.
paid for. I don't get paid for nobody to treat me bad at work. I don't get paid for nobody to be discriminatory towards me
Mhm.
at work, because that's not on my paycheck stub. And my grandmother, wise woman, Lorraine James, always told me, like, if you don't see the word BS on your paycheck stub, you don't accept that. And I've always had that specific mentality.
Mhm.
It wasn't
Mhm.
until I never let nobody talk about me or talk to me the wrong way, because I do have a mouth and I will say something.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's something you have to have, that mentality. You can't allow people to steal your joy at work. And then you
Mhm.
always know where that's coming from. So it's,
Mhm.
again, like, we have to start teaching each other and our kids about having these mental faculties, about confidence,
Mhm.
pouring into them. And I do get that there are some people who might be broken and be coming from a broken place. We have to make sure that we continue to work, pray, and help build those people up so that
Mhm.
they can start teaching that next generation,
Mhm.
like the
Mhm.
things that we're seeing now. And a lot of
Mhm.
people aren't aware, like, of these conversations because they're afraid to have them or don't want to rock the boat. In order to change, you
And
have
that's why we having these conversations.
Yes. So you have to get out
Mhm.
your comfort zone and really shift your mindset. And then that's when I figured out I had, that's my gift, my ability to help people hone in on those things
Yep.
and get them to shift. And then, like, working on their strategies on how they can continually shift and get to a place where they can sustain those shifts. And we have to make sure we play into our gifts. So once you
Mhm.
figure out what your gift is, it'll help you along the way in your mindset, shift it. But we also have to teach our kids those same gifts to
Mhm.
get them to a place. Just because they Black don't mean that they have to work
Mhm.
harder. No, they just have
Well,
to work smarter.
but so on that note, because I like what Miss Teresa said, and I was thinking something similar along those same lines. Teresa says a teacher must facilitate diversity towards each child. What many children don't know is they do not know more, that they do know more than they think, but oftentimes they've not been affirmed. So when I initially read that comment, I thought about, I could go back to, excuse me, to my own education coming up, in grammar school. So I grew up, in New York City, which New York City is considered a melting pot of the world. And so in my classroom was just about every ethnicity on the planet. But if I remember correctly, there was this assumption by teachers that Asian children were better at math, that children from India, they were better at science. And so the structure of the classroom was always kind of like geared towards that. And so if if that is the mentality that's being told to our children all the time, then you don't strive that hard to to get good scores on in math because you're not Asian and you're not supposed to, because Asian kids are the ones supposed to be better at math. Or um you know if you are, I remember growing up, if you are Hispanic, um that you are not that bright. Or I remember I remember hearing it was a prank phone call and nephew Tommy did, and he was talking to someone who was of Hispanic descent, and he suggested to him that he come work on his roof. Do he come fix his roof? And I remember the Hispanic guy, even though it was a joke, he didn't know at the time that it was a joke, but the mentality was, if you Hispanic, you all about manual labor.
Mm.
We're not gonna give you anything that requires any thinking. So when you have a school, I don't want to say a whole school district. I'm gonna limit it to classrooms. When you have some classrooms where that is the mentality of teachers, I feel like that further promotes this um this thing they call imposter syndrome. Um Dantia says that oh well, I want to say we missed some Teresa's comment first. The teacher must oh no, I read that one. I'm sorry. Um Dantia said this generation doesn't desire or even care if they are recognized. Most of the younger generation won't even stay on a job longer than 6 months. Yeah, I believe they got a 2-year rule. That they bouncing every 2 years. But I have noticed that with like what Lorraine said, right? That whole work I gotta work that
Ethic.
much harder than my
Mhm.
counterpart. Oh, they not doing that.
Mhm.
They're not doing that. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and she's younger than me. Was her daughters were still in high school, and I asked her. And matter of fact, she was a director at my job, and I asked her, would you push the same thing to your daughter? In order for her to achieve the things that she wants to achieve, that she's going to have to work harder and she's going to have to do this and so on and so forth. And she was like, and she said yes. And I have to say, I was disappointed, um that she said that, because I had already decided I wouldn't say that to my granddaughters. I'm not going to say that to my daughters. I'm absolutely going to say you need to work smarter, not harder. But I'm also an advocate. I need you to listen. I need you to listen and understand the space in which you're working in. That you know that they already laid down an employee handbook. That employee handbook didn't specify white, black, Hispanic. It was for the employees. And so whatever allowances you make for my white counterpart, you making them same allowances for me. You are exactly right. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is what you said. You said dot 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 dot. And so that means that applies to me too, because your handbook doesn't say that this is only applicable to the white women that work in the job. This is only applicable to the Indian women. This is only applicable to the Asian women. It said employees, period. I do want to address another question before we depart. We only got about 5 minutes, but I did want to. Dantia said, my younger son said that he would never work at a place where he is not valued. He said he didn't. He said he didn't care how much the pay because it wasn't worth the stress. Excellent. But now, see, we know who his mama is.
No, exactly, and
we
that's
we
where I was about to go with
Mhm.
this, because Lorraine, for all of everything that you poured into the audience today, it still has to start at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they step into that school and they get a teacher like Letitia had, if it's not grounded at home, then we're constantly going to be chasing this. Yes, we know who Dantia is, and we know the type of boys that she's raised.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has
Mm-hmm.
that in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to run up against these things over and over and over again
Mm-hmm.
until they get to people who, or they run across people who can pour that type of knowledge into them, or not just pour, just to get them to realize it.
Mm-hmm.
You are somebody, you are worthy, you are the. It's amazing how many people don't get that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we're in the predicament that we're in.
Mm-hmm. So to that point, the next question was: do we think that this next generation is concerned about not meeting a person's expectation? So, based on what Dante has said, I'm going to say no, because their thing is, look, you're going to see me for who I am, and if you don't see me for who I am, I can't mess with you.
Mm.
Um,
Bounce.
Lorraine, you think like is that a the overall consensus for this next generation, like what Dante has said, son said, I need you to see the value, and I don't care how much money you willing to pay me. What you're not going to do is degrade me.
I think that it's been a shift. I
Mm-hmm.
think like after the great resignation we had last year and this quiet quitting we
Mm-hmm.
had this year, these employers are starting to recognize that this generation is not tolerating that what people put up with before. And
Mm-hmm.
so you are getting now like these kids will stay on a job less than 6 months if they feel like they not valued or treated right. Like
Mm-hmm.
they will go somewhere else and make less money, but they'll be happy, or they'll quit the workforce altogether and be in that whole TikTok influence job lifestyle thing that they have going on now. So it's just like I don't think they're worried about meeting the expectations of the parents or the teachers, because I think they in the mindset that they would rather be happy. They would rather live off experience. They would rather be doing them and living their life. And then you also have those who job hop because one, they want more money. They want to get into that corporate
Mm-hmm.
threshold and live that corporate traditional lifestyle and be grinding and putting all that work and looking for that recognition and getting up there to be the big boss lady. You do have those people. But I think that this generation, like the kids are shifting, people are shifting, because I think that they rather have a valued life, less stress, and they rather would be doing them. So I think that now, I think the game done change. I think that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids, like Dantia said, her son is not going to put up with somebody treating them bad at their job.
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times people stay at jobs because they in it for the money, or in it because they can't get
Mm-hmm.
out or go anywhere else, so they just put up with it. But it's like it starts to be soul sucking. I talked to one of my clients, it was soul sucking, and they wasn't
Mm-hmm.
happy, but the only reason why they were doing it
Mm-hmm.
was because they wanted to just pay their mortgage. But it
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm.
trying to talk them into like it's more than that, because if you dead and gone, you're not going to have a mortgage to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like you have to find a place where you'll be happy and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Miss Teresa says,
Yes.
unfortunately, we have
Yep,
younger
it is
parents,
cyclical for
and they don't know how
sure.
to, yep,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to parent. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think so what I'm going to do, the same article that Vanessa was referencing about the five different categories of imposter syndrome. I'm going to share them on the Facebook page and on my YouTube page. It is so obviously it's a very real thing, but it looks different for each individual. It looks different depending on the environment, um, and it looks different um, um, from a societal standpoint as well. And so with these three facets coming into it, it's no wonder that this generation, and even even people as myself, because like Vanessa said, she took a look at those five things, and she could very easily identify with at least three. And I read them as well, and what I came out with is that, oh my God, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's so much.
Mhm. But with that home um, pouring into you, you can snap out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not to say that it can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is, do you have the strength to snap out
Mm-hmm.
of it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's
It's
what these successful women that I had noted
mm-hmm.
have done. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just talking to my husband the other night. He said something to me, and I said, I don't have that particular problem. I said, because I had dates with my dad. I was a dad girl. He always told me, you're this, you're that, I never
Mm-hmm.
had any issues, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But with all of that, you can
Mm-hmm.
still slip for a
Mm-hmm.
second.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, if you don't have it
Mm-hmm.
rooted in you, that's where
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem, because you can stay
Yeah,
in that place. You
and
can snap out.
it's a and it's a partnership,
Mm,
because I think that as teachers, you are seeing you see the interactions of your students, so you
mm,
know a talented and bright and gifted student. You also see when that student has to contend with his or her peers, and when his or her peers are feeling inadequate, let's just say they're feeling inadequate or what have you. They instead of because our children don't know how to do that, instead of them dealing with their own inadequacies, they go and put it on that student, that talented
mm,
and gifted student. And so now you start messing with the psyche of that student, where they lack the confidence that they need to keep pushing forward doing what they're doing. And so I feel like as a teacher, or excuse me, as an educator, that when you see that, I feel like it should be addressed. But where our educators, the problem that they run up against is that it's having to deal with a parent, because if you don't have a parent that is willing to get on the same page with you,
right,
you got an uphill battle.
right.
And
It's
I
got to be a
think
partnership.
that, yeah, it's almost like two parents trying to co-parent. One parent do one thing one way, and another parent does something the other way, right? Leaving the child all messed up. It the education system, along with parent, that it has to be a partnership. We are
Hmm.
leaving our children in your hands, upwards of 6 hours a day,
Hmm.
and 5 days a week. How are you not partnering with your teacher, with your
Hmm.
educator, for your child?
Right.
You see your child in the home environment. They see the child out in the public, in the social environment, having to interact with other people. That looks real different
Hmm.
than what it looks like in the house. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I really, the takeaway I'm gonna say from this conversation, the overall, is that if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, I recommend that you do a little bit of research. Um, and get to learn those five uh, traits. What we gonna call them? Characteristics, traits.
Characteristics,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
or yeah.
Um, and and start to pay attention one to yourself, because we grown people go through it too. Some of us are currently going through it in our own work environments and didn't even realize that that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
um and then two, pay attention to your children, to see what they're exhibiting. um Listen, have earnest conversations with your children's teachers, and and get and see what they are seeing, um and partner with them, so that when these children become adults, that they're not bringing these issues into the workforce and trying to
Right.
now deal with grown people. They look real different than dealing with kids.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, so thank you, Lorene, because you said, we don't like having these conversations, or either we don't like having these conversations, or we don't realize that these things exist, or we say, oh well, they don't really apply to me. um and again, that's why I have this, I started this platform, because I want to discuss the things that really impact us, like for real, for real. um not we're not talking about fads. We're not talking about um fly by night things. We are talking about things that have lasting deep implications, um on ourselves, on our children, on our grandchildren, and what have you. And if we don't step up and address and talk about them now, we will keep putting out generation after generation, going through the same thing over and over again. And I guarantee you, they will get worse and worse and worse. They will not get better. They won't figure it out on their own. They will get worse and worse, because after a while it becomes a norm. This is just what we do. This is just how it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
we definitely don't want to send that message. So ladies, I thank you so much for engaging me in this conversation. I appreciate you both. Um I look forward to having other conversations with you ladies, because I know y'all are like me. You read stuff, you researching stuff. You like, why are we doing that? And so I love look, I love talking to Vanessa, because Vanessa, she get me straight on the political front. She keep me straight on the political front. So we have really thought provoking conversations about
Intense.
these peoples out here in the political arena.
Yes.
And Lorraine, I just marvel. I marvel at Lorraine, and how so, and she's a go getter. She is a go-getter, and any young lady that happens to come under her, that she has the opportunity to coach, um, or mentor, they will be that much better for her, because she's real, she's transparent, and she cares. She genuinely cares. Um, and so I'm just so grateful, um because you two are part of my circle, and you help me to bring something to my viewers. It may only be a few now, but hey, God working it out.
About to blow up. About to
he,
blow
he
up.
he
See it
working it out.
before
He
you
told me
see
to
it.
stay diligent in doing what I'm doing. He gonna
Yeah.
handle the
See it
rest.
before you see it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much. We are 10 minutes over, but that's okay. I appreciate you. I thank you. I thank all of our guests tonight, Miss Teresa and um Kedra Services.
That's my
Um
sister.
this okay, awesome.
Shirley. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we had Dontia, and who else did I see on here? I thought I saw somebody else. But yeah,
Teresa
listen,
Taylor.
I don't know what the world happened with my Facebook, but I'm getting ready to go in here and look to see. what happened. I declare, surely it can't be because I spelled imposter wrong and went to fix it. Go figure.
Go
Ladies, y'all have
figure.
a wonderful evening. Y'all keep me lifted in prayer.
Will
My
do.
little procedure tomorrow.
You gonna pass with
Mm.
flying colors.
Yes. Look,
Yes, yes,
I'm not even
yes.
worried about that. I'm worried about trying to drink all the doggone water.
Follow the instructions of the nurse exactly how they got it on
Yes.
the paper.
Yes, yes.
You'll be
Mhm.
fine.
You will be fine.
And you'll be asleep for the whole thing. So
Yeah.
The
Look.
best sleep you'll ever have in your life.
Oh, yes, I
I
know.
need to go have it just so I can get some sleep. Okay?
Wait, isn't that
I
what
need to
Michael
go back.
Jackson was doing? He was
That
like, "Can I
milk.
get some of that so I can sleep?"
That milk. He called it the milk. I need some of that milk. That propofol.
Look, all I'm thinking about is what I'm gonna eat afterwards. I promise you, that's all on my mind. I
Don't go
prepare
don't go
all
in
I
too
done
hard.
prepare all types of meals
Yeah.
for
Don't go in
afterwards.
too hard afterwards. Take it easy.
I know.
Just like a
All
fast, you know.
all right, ladies. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you
you
so
too.
much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You do the
All right,
Okay,
same.
bye
bye.
bye.
Bye.